We got a new setback for the Department of Justice under Donald Trump yet again, this time a grand jury, the grand jury of the people, speaking out and refusing to indict Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, for mortgage fraud or any other crime a second time. Congratulations to the Norfolk Virginia for seeing through this vindictive prosecution and refusing to be a party to it. This may not be an end of the Trump administration's attempts to retaliate against Letitia James, who is an arch critic of Donald Trump, was successful in obtaining a fraud judgment against him in New York, and is on Donald Trump's enemies list. But you have to get through the grand jury first, folks. And this is coming less than 2 weeks after the original indictment was thrown out by Judge Curry, after she also found that Lindsey Halligan, Donald Trump's handpicked prosecutor, was illegally appointed under various statutes that deal with substitute U.S. attorneys. Nobody named Lindsey Halligan was in the grand jury room apparently yesterday in Norfolk, Virginia. They likely sent in Robert McBride, who was just appointed to be Lindsey Halligan's number 2, or the first assistant in the office. He's in his 60s. He seems to have a lot of experience, not in Virginia. He is a Kentucky lawyer, but at least had been a prosecutor, had been an assistant U.S. attorney in the past. But it looks like McBride and his team did no better than Lindsey Halligan. They didn't make the foolish choice of having Lindsey Halligan going again. Now, as I reported earlier on Legal AF, we're watching closely this strategy, if you can call it that the Trump administration is trying to use now that Judge Curry has thrown out Lindsey Halligan and the indictment of James Comey, the former FBI director, and Letitia James. Looks like their strategy is to try to get a quote-unquote clean indictment without Lindsey Halligan's involvement, and then decide whether to appeal ultimately about Lindsey Halligan being thrown out as U.S. attorney. In other words, they're more interested in the indictments of Comey and Letitia James than saving or salvaging Lindsey Halligan's reputation or career as she is being slid under a bus. Because if they can get these indictments some other way, I'm not sure they're going to fight to keep Lindsey Halligan in a position that she's woefully incompetent to hold. I'm glad you're here on Legal AF on Friday. As you know, I'm traveling, but I had to jump on the microphone and address this breaking news story. How did we get here? Letitia James, New York Attorney General, arch critic and I guess political enemy of Donald Trump, has opposed Donald Trump frequently. She obtained a $450 million civil fraud judgment against him. The amount of the fraud judgment is up on appeal, but it's been affirmed by at least one level of New York appellate court about the fraud that the Trump administration and Donald Trump and his family committed for years in New York. That got Letitia James on Donald Trump's watch list, his retaliation list. And as soon as he got the Department of Justice under his thumb, Donald Trump started to send out social media and direct messages, directives to people like Pam Bondi, his puppet of a attorney general, instructing her to go after Letitia James and James Comey and Adam Schiff, the senator from California, and to use Lindsey Halligan to do it. That led to a motion to disqualify Lindsey Halligan being successfully filed in front of Judge Curry. Judge Curry bouncing Halligan. Now, you might be focusing on bouncing balls. This is now the third U.S. attorney in the last 2 weeks that I've had a report on that's in jeopardy or has been fired. Lindsey Halligan fired by Judge Curry. Donald Trump's handpicked prosecutor Alina Habba, best friend and criminal defense lawyer, she got fired by the Third Circuit Court of Appeals earlier last week because she was illegally appointed. And John Sarcone in the Northern District of New York, who's a prosecutor going after Letitia James through her office, the Attorney General's office in New York, opening up a grand jury proceeding against her there. He's about to get fired by Judge Schofield in New York after a hearing yesterday. So lots of news about Letitia James and about James Comey and these U.S. attorneys. But the breaking part of the news is a grant that the Department of Justice, even with career prosecutors and people that knew what they were doing, like Robert McBride, as opposed to Lindsey Halligan, still were not able to get a grand jury, 14 people on a grand jury or so, to indict on the flimsy manufactured case of mortgage fraud against Letitia James. By the way, while you're here, now's the time to help us cross the 1 million subscriber barrier on the way into 2026. Hit the free subscribe button when you can. So what is the claims? I'll just wrap it up this way. What are the claims against Letitia James? Well, they're relatively straightforward. These are the facts that are not in dispute. She bought a second home. She bought another property. She owns several real pieces of real estate. She operates out of Albany, New York, and out of Brooklyn, New York, as the Attorney General for the state of New York, the highest law enforcement officer there, elected by the people of the state of New York. One of the pieces of property is a relatively modest single-family home in Norfolk, Virginia, for about $118,000, $119,000, for which she took out a $100,000 loan. The bank knew that this was going to be a second home, and she signed, or had her niece on her behalf signed some documents with her proxy acknowledging that this was a second home for Letitia James. And when she comes to town, she does use that as a second home. In the interim, she's got her niece and a couple of kids living in the house. We've never seen a rental agreement. I've been told it's rent-free, that she's not collecting rent there. But in any event, how is this mortgage fraud? How is the lender defrauded? They have a calculus that, well, she saved $17,000 over 30 years, like $50 a month. Does anybody think Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, to save $50 a month, okay, committed mortgage fraud? Well, this grand jury didn't think so. And this is the first time around. This is the second grand jury in Norfolk, Virginia, that refused to indict her. The indictment that did come out and was tossed by Judge Curry came out of a different region, Alexandria, Virginia. And the work that was done in Norfolk, Virginia was never sent over to the grand jury in Alexandria. It was hidden from them by Lindsey Halligan. Now they put on their case. They showed the documents. Here's the it's a relatively straightforward case for a grand jury. Here's the mortgage that she took out. Here's the amount that she took out in a loan. She's paying up her loan. This is the documents that she signed. There's apparently, according to the reporting, there's a niece who was given power of attorney to sign a lot of these documents. Anybody that's bought a house or taken out a mortgage, you know it's a raft of documents, including electronically, that they were signed. Check, 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 check. One of them was that she was going to live in the house as a second home. Okay. So when she's not living in the house as a second home, she's got her niece with a couple of kids living in it. I mean, and she saved a couple of points off the mortgage rate. I mean, this has been a silly case from day one. I'm glad the grand jury in Norfolk, Virginia saw through it. Just to continue the update, there was the head of major crimes, a career prosecutor, Liz Uri, who worked out of Norfolk, Virginia, and she ran that original grand jury, and she wrote a memo that's going to be part of the case on the defense if they ever get an indictment up and running, in which she said there's no criminal case against Letitia James, and we should not be prosecuting under the Department of Justice manual and the rules and the federal principles of prosecution. And then what happened to Liz Uri? She got fired. And it got turned over to Lindsey Halligan, and now we're there. But I'm shocked at Robert McBride. You know, he's the number 2 now. He's at the end of his career. He's in his 60s, as I am. He's got a long career of, I guess, being an ethical professional, officer of the court. Why he'd want to sully the end of his career by doing Donald Trump's bidding is beyond me. You know, at a certain point, you have to stand up for what's right. Letitia James is already out with some comments about her innocence. Let's play the clip.
This is not about me. No. This is about all of us. Yeah. And about a justice system which has been weaponized. Yeah. A justice system which has been used as a tool of revenge. Yes. This justice system which has been used as a tool of revenge and a weapon against those individuals who simply did their job and who stood up for the rule of law. We stand with you. And a justice system which unfortunately is nothing being used as a vehicle of retribution. Yes. But my faith is strong. And my faith is, I have this belief in the justice system, in the rule of law, and I have a belief in America and all of its individuals who have stood with me, not only in New York, but all across this nation. I've heard from just about every jurisdiction in this nation who have said, stand up and be tall. And never ever cow down or back down. No fear. Or break or bend. No fear. So there's no fear today. No fear. No fear. No fear. No fear. No fear. Because I believe that justice will rain down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Preach. And I'm here to say that my work and my job and all that I do, all throughout my public career, I've stood up for the rights of New Yorkers and Americans, and I will not be deterred. And I will not be deterred. I will not be distracted. I will do my job each and every day, and that's why I'm headed back to New York, because there's work to be done standing up for the rule of law. God bless you and thank you all, and I appreciate you.
And her lawyer, Abby Lowell, has come out and said, this should be the end of the prosecution. Of course, the Trump administration is like, well, let's not have any false celebration yet. They're going to try to indict again, try to learn how many times are they going to try. Jeanine Pirro, Donald Trump's hand-picked prosecutor in D.C., she tried 4 or 5 times to get somebody indicted for assaulting an officer when that person in protest, she was being assaulted and never was able to bring those charges. So, don't give up the ship, Norfolk, Virginia people. And what I've said earlier is it just came to fruition. There's so much publicity about Tish James and so many people in Norfolk, Virginia who obviously know about the case and know about the fact that the Halligan was illegally appointed, that her indictment was false, that it was kicked out and dismissed by Judge Curry. What do they think? The people of Norfolk, Virginia are babies and they're not in the know about what's happening? So of course, when they get sat in a grand jury, they're going to listen to the evidence presented, but they know what happened. And I'm glad they stood up for justice and for the rule of law. We'll continue to follow it right here on Legal AF. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button. Come over to Legal AF Substack, and for about $7 a month, you can get some amazing content at the intersection of law and politics and support all that we do on Legal AF. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.